Can you believe the long and unique history of the SeaWorld theme parks? SeaWorld has been one of the most controversial and talked about theme parks in the world. They are also probably one of the biggest companies that have undergone serious changes over the years to make major improvements for their brand. In this video, we are going to go through the history and transformation of the SeaWorld brand to the result we see today. Before we dive into the history, let's talk about the current portfolio of SeaWorld parks and entertainment. The company currently has 7 theme parks, 4 water parks, and 1 oceanarium park in the United States. The parks they run are SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Sesame Place, and Discovery Cove. We will break down each of these parks' brands and the history behind them, as well as tell the overall story of the company. The story of SeaWorld is broken down into 2 main areas. Now that we have established the history of Busch Gardens in last week's video, we can look at the history of SeaWorld, as the 2 companies and brands go hand in hand with one another. SeaWorld was founded in 1964 by a team of 4 individuals, most famously George Millay. These 4 individuals were all graduates from UCLA and sought out to build an underwater entertainment restaurant. The 4 individuals would build out the concept of SeaWorld San Diego that was opened on March 21st, 1964. The early theme park was 22 acres big with dolphins, sea lions, and several attractions. SeaWorld saw success from their $1.5 million with 45 employees. They continued to grow with 400,000 visitors in their first year. The company would see opportunity and would go public in 1968, seeing the potential to continue building. The first SeaWorld park saw an opportunity for increased sea life entertainment as well. In the Southern California area, they saw steep competition with Marineland, which was in LA, and the theme park of Disneyland in Anaheim. SeaWorld understood investment was needed to stay alive in the area. The biggest get for the San Diego park would be Shamu as part of the Killer Whales exhibit. It allowed them to capture more visitors and garner the amazement of tourists everywhere. It would be another reason to come to the West Coast. After seeing the great success of SeaWorld San Diego and the consistent growth over the years, they decided to continue with expansion. The next opportunity they saw would be Ohio. In 1970, they would open SeaWorld in Ohio, in Aurora, SeaWorld Ohio, or SeaWorld Cleveland as it was known as. The concept of SeaWorld in Ohio came from the marketing director at Cedar Point, Earl Gascoigne, in 1966. Earl saw the growth potential that SeaWorld had in other regions of the U.S. Earl thought it would be a great partnership between SeaWorld and Cedar Point for growth of both companies, Earl wanting the park to be right near Cedar Point. However, George Millay, once seeing the deal put forth by Cedar Point, decided the partnership was not worthwhile for them. By 1968, the SeaWorld company was looking at various different areas as an opportunity for their next park. Their target was somewhere between Detroit and Pittsburgh, as they believed it would be a great opportunity to capture the blue-collar market. By 1968, Earl Gascoigne had left the Cedar Point company and began trying to redevelop Geauga Lake, a struggling amusement park region near Cleveland. Earl and his partner Gaspar Lococo were looking for a big draw to the area to turn it into more of a destination or resort area. Rather than adding investment from their end for rides and attractions, Earl, knowing that this was not something they wanted to do, he decided to reach back out to George Millay. After discussions, Millay decided to build SeaWorld in Ohio in 1968. The park hosted around 25 acres of land. The park cost around $5.5 million to build, but exceeded expectations almost immediately when opening with over 1 million visitors in the first year of operation. The park continued to expand over the years, adding new shows, aquariums, and areas. Many even consider it to be the most beautiful landscaped and looking theme park. They had their typical animal shows like that of Shamu and others. By the year 2000, the park had grown to occupy 232 acres of land in the area. However, this is where the struggles would occur. The deal originally made by SeaWorld in Geauga Lake actually restricted the park from building roller coasters and water rides. Essentially, it tied their hands from an expansion into the world of rides at the park. They were forced to lean into more of the educational aspects. The park would operate for 22 years, closing in October of 2000. The success of SeaWorld in Ohio led the company to look for more areas to expand their theme park empire. They searched for opportunities that already had large tourism opportunities. When searching, they saw the Orlando area as an opportunity. The park had begun planning while Walt Disney World was finishing up their design of their resorts in Magic Kingdom. By December 15, 1973, opened 2 years after the Walt Disney World Resort, SeaWorld believed that there was enough of a tourism market available. They believed people would expand their vacations longer from Disney World to spend time at SeaWorld. You also have to remember this was prior to Orlando being a huge tourism destination. It was essentially just Disney expanding downtown Orlando, Cypress Gardens in Winter Haven, and Busch Gardens in Tampa. As the 1970s and 80s were the great Florida tourism boom, SeaWorld Orlando, like the other SeaWorld parks, would focus mainly on sea life shows and experiences when opening. Things like the Dolphin Theater, Tropical Reef, and newly unique Sky Tower. Besides the aquarium and sea life entertainment aspect, the Sky Tower was an incredible addition, as it was seen as very unique for the area and the SeaWorld parks. Again, throughout the 70s and early 80s, SeaWorld was not competing with Disney World. They actually felt they would mutually help one another, building a new tourism industry. In fact, several Disney executives in the 70s pushed for George Millay to build his new SeaWorld park in Orlando. It also helped that George Millay admired Walt Disney and believed in his style of management and treatment of cast members. The SeaWorld Park in Orlando even put an ad in the Orlando newspaper to welcome Epcot in 1982. By the mid-1980s, SeaWorld Orlando realized they would have to start expanding and creating new additions to be successful in the region, as they wanted to build out the repeatability of coming to the SeaWorld parks to match the addition of Epcot at Disney World. First, they would build out the Bayside Stadium, which would lead to them having a water skiing show at the park. It was a great addition to the park and added another needed show element. Seeing the success of this, they would continue to expand, leading to SeaWorld coming up with the Shamu Stadium, which was a 7 million gallon tank to hold 5 killer whales. This would open September 1984 and would be popular at open, with it being a great addition to the park. The 1980s wrapped up with them adding the Penguin Encounter in 1987. SeaWorld Orlando, however, knew they would need to adapt to continue to grow in order to survive in the Orlando area. New parks were planned for Disney, with Disney MGM Studios opening on May 1st, 1989, and later with Animal Kingdom coming on April 22nd, 1998, as well as the newly added Universal theme parks in the Orlando area, with Universal Orlando Studios opening June 7th, 1999, and Islands of Adventure opening May 28th, 1999. This meant 4 new theme parks in the region, as well as the ever-growing number of countless other entertainment parks in the area. SeaWorld needed to adapt. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, SeaWorld Orlando began to change and turn into more of a theme park rather than previously considered to be an aquarium park. Their first expansion in the world of rides and entertainment would come with simulator known as Mission Bermuda Triangle, later rethemed Wild Arctic. They would then introduce the first ever combination roller coaster and water ride, Journey to Atlantis, which opened in 1998. Then once again, they would have another huge addition with their first roller coaster, Kraken. Seeing success from Kraken and Atlantis, it made SeaWorld Orlando realize the potential of adding new rides to the park. This would lead to them adding rides like Manta, Mako, Infinity Falls, as well as introducing new shows in theaters throughout the 1990s and 2000s like Antarctica, Empire of the Penguin, and even adding a fireworks show by 2006. The park looks very different from today compared to 40 years ago. The final owned SeaWorld park would open in San Antonio, which would open May 27, 1988. This was done as they wanted their opening to be over the Memorial Day weekend. In its first year, it would have over 3 million guests come to visit, about 10% more than projected. The park would open with 5 shows in total. These venues would be the Beluga Stadium, Orca Encounter, Sea Lion Stadium, Bayside Stadium, and Nautilus Amphitheater. The Beluga Stadium would host shows with beluga whales and dolphins. The Orca Encounter would host a show with baby Shamu, similar to the previously discussed orca shows. The Sea Lion Stadium would host the Clyde and Seymour Sea Lion Show. Bayside Stadium would have a similar ski show as previously discussed. The Nautilus Amphitheater would have various different functions throughout the year for shows. SeaWorld San Antonio would get its first ride in 1991 with Texas Splashdown and Rico Loco. It would also introduce a Shamu-themed kids area in 1992, as well as start hosting camps for children. The park got its first coaster, called the Great White, in 1997. After seeing the success of this high-speed coaster, SeaWorld San Antonio realized the opportunity for more rides. They would then introduce the Steel Eel in 1997, Journey to Atlantis in 2007, Wavebreaker in 2017, and most recently, Texas Stingray. Like the other Busch Gardens and SeaWorld parks, San Antonio realized their success came from shows and coasters. If you haven't already, check out our video from last week on the history of Busch Gardens. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, follow, and subscribe. Believable Truths.